Hey guys, this is Jonathan Gardner, and a lot of you asked about. You saw my 19,683 video where I celebrated, 19,683 subscribers, which of course is 3 to the 3 to the third. And so a lot of you asked about Vim. You saw me using Vim, and you're like, "Oh, that's magical. That's totally cool." So, what's the right way to put this? Vim looks magical. It's really not that magical. And so you guys wanted to have kind of an introduction to Vim and how Vim works. So I'm going to give you one command, :help. Well, you probably want to learn :q first. That's how you get out of Vim. So :help. You can see down at the bottom here, I upped the font size. So you can see down at the bottom, I typed :help. So let me just hit escape here. So here I am just tucking around. And if I start typing characters, it's like, okay, some of the weird things happened. Didn't quite happen the way I wanted it to. But :help will bring up the help documentation. Okay. And I'm going to hit Control W and then L. No, Control W, Shift L. That's what it is. Okay. And then this is the help documentation. It's a little bit, let me make this a little bigger. If I know how to do it, I don't remember how to make it bigger. So I'm going to do help. Control W. What is it? Control W. Here we go. Control W plus increase height. And Control right bracket. There. Control W less than and greater than. Control W. Now Control W shift. Control W greater than. Okay. Control W shift there. So I'm going to do 10. Control W. Okay. So this is basically what I'm doing most of the time when I'm doing Vim, is trying to remember commands. Okay. Oh crap! I closed it. Okay. Help. Control W shift L. Control W. Greater than, that's just one. I want 10 of those. Control W shift greater than. Okay, so that's one quick lesson in Vim. Is pretty much any command you can do. You can type a number before it, and it'll repeat that command that many times. Okay, so in this case, I just wanted to make the window a little bigger. So Control W greater than will make it wider, and then Control W greater than makes it 10 wider. So this is the help file. To move around, use HJKL. I don't use HJKL. I use the arrow keys. I tried using HJKL. I never got used to it, so I use the arrow keys. Okay. :Q enter to quit. :Q A exclamation enter to really quit, in case it says like, hey, there's changes, you don't want to quit. Okay. Control right bracket, right square brace or bracket, whatever you want to call that. Okay. You're going to go in this help documentation and use the arrow keys or HJKL or whatever you want to use and navigate until things that you can hit Control right bracket on. And Control T or Control O will take you back. You want to take a sticky note, write these things down so you can memorize them and use them. Okay. This is going to be your standard for learning how Vim works. There's way too much to present in a video series. And if I present it to you in a video series, you're not going to remember, okay? So you need to go through and study this and memorize. It takes a lot of work. There's a huge learning curve to Vim, but it's all worth it. 100% guaranteed it's all worth it, okay? Let's hit Control right bracket there on this topic, quick ref. Oh boy, I have never actually, this has changed since the last time I read it, so. Okay, I'm scared. Control T, let's go back. Here, this one. User 01, Control right bracket. Okay. This chapter introduces manual available with Vim. Read this to know. Okay, 2 manuals Vim installed using the Vim Tutor. Yes, you want to use Vim Tutor. Vim Tutor is a program that's Vim with a special file that kind of walks you through some of the most basic commands. Use Vim Tutor because it'll get you, doing stuff. Get Vim installed. Who cares? You already have it installed. Vim Tutor is great. Okay. Next is user 02. Running Vim, inserting text. Okay. Use gvim, whatever, to run the Vim file, whatever. Inserting text. Vim is a modal editor. This is the most important thing to know. When you first start up Vim, you are not in typing mode. If you start typing, random things, bad things may happen. Okay. So there's different names for the modes. I don't know the names. I just know that when you come into Vim, you're in the mode. And this is the one where you use arrow keys to move around. And then you have to hit like A or capital A or I or capital I or O or capital O or C or capital C. I think that does things. I think, yeah, capital C changes a line. And you can hit CC, you know, replace a line with something. I'm hitting U, by the way. I hit escape and then U to go back and undo. And all these different commands to get you into insert mode. And once you're in insert mode, then you can do things. Okay, so I'm going to go to this line here. I'm going to say insert. I'm going to hit enter. I'm like, hello, I'm hitting backspace. I am typing text. By the way, backspace is configurable. And I hit enter and then I hit escape to get out of that and back in normal mode. Okay, so I is one way. O inserts below. A inserts after. I inserts before. I think above is Shift O. I can't remember. Shift O. Yeah, Shift O is above. Okay, there's all these different commands to insert. You want to learn them all. They're very easy. And the thing is with Vim, I don't remember. I just type it and it works and I know what it does. I don't remember the different letters and what they do exactly. Don't want to use set show mode. You'll figure it out really quick. Moving around, HJKL, obviously. Yeah, nobody uses HJKL. I don't use HJKL. Sorry. Deleting characters. So if you have backspace here, let me do help BS. BS is backspace. So there is a setting called backspace. And I think I have backspace set to 2. Backspace is 2, yeah. And that's in my vimrc file. I forget where it is. It took me a while to find it in Windows. That's what I'm using right now. But anyway, yeah, backspace will allow you to, like when you're inserting text, to back over the insertion and go below and above and stuff like that and everything like that. Okay, Control T to go back. So BS. Deleting a line, you can use DD to delete a line. Some of the commands, when you double them, it just works on a line. Okay, so I think DD, CC, and what are some other ones? I think that's about it. YY to yank. So things like that. So these commands will just take a whole line. So this nice little thing to just double it. It's pretty rare though. Most often the commands you need to like prefix with a number or you postfix with the thing to do it to, right? So there's like several commands to tell you, like markers in text, right? So when you move around, like I can type, I know this much. I think parentheses, so if I hit closing parenthesis, it takes me to the beginning of the next sentence. And opening parenthesis is the beginning of the previous sentence, okay? And then I think curly brace takes me to the paragraphs. Yeah, I don't use that often, okay? But the things that I do is like E to take you to the end of the word, right? So if I want to change a word, I can do change W, right? Because W means a word. W just moves a word there, okay? I can also hit CE, right? That changes to the end of the word. CW changes to the next word. That works the same for some reason. I forget which one I like to use. You can also do T and then a character. T, like let's say S, will take me to the next S, right before the next S. And then you can do FS, which takes you to the next S, includes the next S. So if I'm on this line here, I need to do Shift 6 to go back to the beginning of the line here. Then I say DTS, it deletes up to the S. If I do DFS, it deletes the S, right? So things like that. So you need to know numbers, you need to know the commands and what they operate to, and undo, redo. Okay, so 99.9% of the time, I'm just using U and Control R. So U undoes and Control R redos, okay? So let's go back here. Undo, 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 undo. I've been editing this for a while. And Control R will redo. Now there is a way that you can go back and do stuff, but typically, like you can go back and like branch off of the undo history. I've never done that. I've played with it, but I've never actually done it. Control W enter saves the file. So Control R and U are two important commands, and okay. The I commands does it just before. A is append. Shift A. I use Shift A a lot. Like I'll be at a line, I want to add something to the end. I do that a lot. Macros. So recording macros, that's the Q command. That's pretty useful. I use that a lot. The other thing is finding text. I use it like you'd use in less or more. So I might do /expand. That takes me to the next instance of the word expand. Question mark outside would take me to the previous instance of the word outside. in the document. That's pretty useful. Substitutions. If you know regexes, you use substitutions. So I do spend a lot of time studying because the regexes for Vim are a little bit different than the regexes for like Python and Perl and stuff like that. So I spend a lot of time reading this document, more time than I'd like to admit, reminding myself exactly what the commands are in Vim for the regexes. So, and I go really deep. I remember using these at equals and at exclamation and things like that in the substitutions I use. A good substitution is worth a lot. Another thing that I do is I will use Shift V to highlight a line, right? And then I can yank all those lines, or I can do Shift V and just replace all those lines with C, right? That's something I like to do a lot. Control V, every once in a while I have a table that's aligned vertically. And what Control V allows me to do is actually like highlight. It's kind of hard to see what this is doing here. Let me just do. So we're going to keep the first letter of each line because there's line wrap happening here because the text is so big. And then we're going to delete all this, X. You can see now I have 3 lines, but that text is removed. Let me do it here. You'll see it. Control V. And let's delete that. So X. You see how that works? That's pretty cool. Control V. Just plain old V if you want to highlight parts of lines. And then you can use regular motion. You can use jumping commands. So I can say V, and I'm going to say cylinder. You see how that works? It's pretty easy. Escape to get out of visual mode. So visual mode, insert mode, normal mode. Indentation. So you don't see it here. And I don't have really any good code at the moment to show you. But when I'm working on a large file that has indentation, I will turn indent on and do some indentation commands. I use that more than I'd like to admit. I don't like the indentation. So there's 2 kinds of indent, right? One is like when you're typing, like if I start typing Python, let me see if I can get, here, let's do this. Let's say, this is code in the Python language. Let's see if it recognizes. I think that's how you do it. Def foo. So there's indentation like this. What you want to do is folding. That's right. It's called folding. Text folds, right? And so what text folds will do is if you have indented text, it'll hide blocks of indented text from you, which is just what you want to do when you have like huge files. Let's see, what else do I use in Vim? Of course, splitting screens, moving screens around, making screens bigger, buffers, like going between buffers. Like if I'm editing like 20 files and I want to make the same change to those 20 files, I will load up Vim with all 20 files and then just like do buffer next, buffer next, buffer next, and then buffer previous BP and stuff like that. So all kinds of stuff you can do. That's really all I wanted to share with you guys. The thing about Vim is you have to learn by doing. There's no other way. Okay. So what I recommend is you either get like a book on Vim, or you have like the documentation in a side screen and you follow along as you're editing a file and you apply what you learn. And the more you do what you learn, the quicker it'll be programmed into your fingertips, right? So there's like the front of the brain where you understand the concept and you can think about it, but it takes a while. And then there's kind of the back of the brain where it starts to become a reflex, a reaction. Well, you have to get it all the way down to your fingertips so your fingers know what you're doing better than you do. And then when you start doing that, you see text editing in a completely different way. No longer are you typing. You're actually like editing text. You say, remove this paragraph, replace those 2 paragraphs as those paragraphs, move this section down to that section, change the indentation here, change these words to those words and stuff like that. And it's a very powerful tool once you start thinking at that level. And it doesn't matter what kind of file you're editing. Vim is kind of the ideal tool because it's adapted to, all the different kinds of files that I can imagine. I've used it for Java. I've used it for Python, C++, Perl. I used it heavily for Perl, and that's really where I cut my teeth on Vim was learning how to program Perl. I've used it for LaTeX. I've used it for, these are RST files. You can use it for MD files, documentation files. I've used it for hex editing. So I've had files that were in hex that I wanted to edit, and I've used Vim for that. It can do that as well. What I did is I'd load it into Vim and then apply a script that would turn it into hex characters, make my changes, and then turn it back into the raw data. You could do that. You can edit zip files. You can load up zip files in Vim and edit individual files within the zip file archive. It'll change the zip archive to reflect your changes. You can do all kinds of things. And the nice thing about Vim is if you do anything like you have a remote server that's running Linux, you know that Vim's going to be installed. And if it's not installed, it's very easy to get it installed. And Vim works very well when you're over an SSH connection. So you use PuTTY or whatever to get in there. Once you're in there and you have Vim, the world's your oyster. Okay. And the best part is if you're over a slow network connection, which can happen during outages or when the network is super busy, and you need to take the time to like minimize the amount of text that you type and the amount of text that's returned, Vim will allow you to optimize that if you need to. So I've had situations where like the network connection is super slow because the data center is just swamped, but I'm able to get in, make the changes that need to be changed using a bare minimum of commands. So it might take me 5 or 10 minutes to get like 3 or 4 commands through, but I can carefully think about which commands I want to send, which letters to press, and get those things done such that the task is done. Okay. And the other nice thing about Vim is it's related to a lot of the other Unix tools. Like if you know how grep works, Vim, the regular expressions and stuff like that is very applicable there. There's commands actually that are in grep. I think grep actually comes from the original VI editor. It stands for global replace. And if you know how grep works and you know how Vim works, there's a lot of synergy there. There's a lot of synergy for a lot of the tools in the Unix environment with Vim. So knowing Vim will really expose you to a lot of these other tools. So I don't really have much else to say other than watching videos on how to learn Vim is probably the worst way to spend your time. Reading books, actually using those commands that you're learning, or browsing the online documentation, that's the best way. So if you had seen me throughout my career, I always have like sticky notes of commands. Sorry, that's my wife calling me right now. I always have sticky notes of commands that I'm trying to learn and master. So guys, this is about all I have to say on Vim. Happy Vimming. If you have questions, you could ask me, of course. There's a huge Vim community that, of course, would help you as well. And one last note that I wanted to mention. There's a lot of Vim clones out there. I don't use them. I don't see any reason to. They're not installed by default on the different Unix systems. They're not any better than Vim that I can see. They're just rewrites. I've seen one developer complain about how Vim is written, and he's complaining out of ignorance because he doesn't understand that you have to write your program that way. That's the only way to make it work with a console and with the various environments it has to run in. Anyway, guys, thanks for your time. Take care. Bye-bye.